I used to think humiliation had a limit, a point where the sting would dull, where the body would stop trembling, where the heart would build a shell thick enough to hold back the shame. But standing barefoot on the cold stone of the High Moon Arena, 19 years old and shaking under a sky full of strangers who wished I didn't exist, I learned humiliation had no bottom. There was always another layer to fall through. "Bring forward the unwanted Omega," someone shouted. That was me. That was all I had ever been. Hands shoved me from behind. I stumbled into the center of the arena, the torches flaring high enough to paint my skin in harsh gold. The stands above me were full. Warriors, pack mothers, old men with voices like rusted metal. And that hunger on their faces? A hunger to watch me fail. Every year the moon reveal decided who belonged among wolves, except I had never belonged. My foster mother stood with her arms crossed, refusing to meet my eyes. My foster siblings pretended not to know me at all. They took a step back when I looked at them, as if shame were contagious and I might infect them just by breathing. "Shift," the marshal barked. "Prove you're not a curse." My throat closed. This moment had haunted every night of my life, every failed attempt, every suppressed ache beneath my skin, every whisper behind my back. But I lifted my chin. I had to try. I spread my fingers, feeling the tremble all the way up to my shoulders. I inhaled the cold wind of High Moon Ridge. I reached inward, searching for the wolf I had never met, searching for anything. A growl, a spark, a tremor. Nothing. Just the hollow echo of my own heartbeat. "Again," the marshal ordered. I tried. Moon above, I tried. My bones quivered, my spine arched with the effort. I clenched my teeth until they ached. Sweat gathered in the curve of my back. I reached deeper, pushing against a wall I could not see. Something old and quiet inside me trembled, but it didn't rise. Not yet. Not now. Someone laughed. Then more joined in. The sound rolled down the stone walls, wrapping around me like claws. "She can't even shake," a woman hissed. "Omega, she doesn't even have a wolf," another spat. "She's nothing. A waste." My foster brother, who used to pull food from my plate when he thought no one noticed, smirked proudly as if my failure made him strong. And then someone said the sentence I had heard so many times I thought I'd grown immune to it. "Cast her out." The words burrowed under my skin, sharp and cold. Cast out. Alone. Unclaimed. Wolves who left the packs rarely survived the ridge. Starvation. Rogues. Winter storms that showed mercy to no one. My breath grew shallow. "I'm trying," I whispered, more to myself than to them. "It doesn't matter what you try," my foster mother snapped. "A curse cannot shift." Her words hit me harder than the laughter, because once, when I was 8, she had braided my hair by the fire and promised I'd find my wolf any day now. Once, she had smiled at me. Once, she had believed. Now she looked at me the way you look at a stain you can't scrub out. The marshal raised his arm to deliver the sentence. "By the decree of High Moon." And then the world went silent. Not quiet, not still, silent. A pressure rippled through the air, sharp and cold enough to make my skin prickle. The torches flickered as though bowing to something unseen. Every head turned toward the far end of the arena. A dark figure entered, flanked by guards in black armor, the Alpha King of Stormfell, King Ardent. I had seen him only on banners, a shadowed crown, eyes like winter lightning, the man whose presence made entire courts kneel. "You will not give the decree," Ardent said, voice deep enough to vibrate through my bones. The marshal froze mid-breath. Ardent's gaze slid toward me, piercing as a blade. For the first time in my life, someone looked at me like there was something beneath my skin worth noticing. My heart, The same heart that had pounded hollow moments ago jolted violently. Something inside me stirred, low, powerful, awakening. A faint throb down my spine, like claws testing the edges of a cage. My wolf, silent for 19 years, lifted her head. And the moon, high above us, kept rising, as if waiting for me. I didn't expect the Alpha King to look at me. Not really. People like him didn't look at people like me. King saw warriors, heirs, threats, dignitaries. Not the unwanted girl shaking barefoot on a stone platform, still catching her breath from failing to shift. But he did look at me. When King Ardent entered the arena, every sound died. Even the wind seemed to still, as if the ridge itself bowed to him. He moved with a cold sort of grace, the kind that said nothing could touch him unless he allowed it. Black armor lined with frost steel. A long cloak dusted with silver threads, a crown hidden in the shadows of his dark hair. His eyes, gods, his eyes, scanned the crowd like twin blades, sharp, bright, merciless. They passed over the marshal, the nobles, the rows of sneering pack members, until they landed on me. And then they didn't leave. They didn't blink. They didn't soften. They didn't pity. They studied. My heart slammed against my ribs, hard enough that I swore the entire arena could hear it. He walked closer, each step echoing with a pressure that made everyone lower their heads. I wanted to disappear, to dissolve, to sink into the cracks of the stone floor. But I couldn't move. I was trapped under his gaze, pinned like prey beneath a predator's shadow. "What is this?" Arden asked the marshal. His voice was deep, calm, and colder than the rim of the high moon ridge. The marshal swallowed hard. "Your Majesty, we're conducting the annual moon reveal. This Omega, she has no wolf." Someone from the stands shouted. "She's cursed!" Another jeered. Laughter followed. I flinched. Arden's jaw tightened. But not at me. At them. Then he looked at me again, so intensely that my breath caught in my throat. I didn't know what he saw. A trembling girl with tangled hair and shame burning on her skin. A failed wolf? A nobody? But his voice cut through the arena like a blade slicing through fog. "Reveal her again." The marshal blinked. "Your Majesty?" Ardent didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The command rolled through the air like thunder. "I said reveal her again," he repeated, eyes never leaving mine. "I want the truth." A murmur rippled through the crowd, eager, cruel, excited, hungry. They wanted blood. They wanted spectacle. And I was the spectacle. My stomach dropped. The platform beneath me suddenly seemed too small. My legs felt hollow. I can't," I whispered, barely audible. But of course no one cared. Two enforcers stepped forward, gripping my arms in cold, unforgiving hands. Panic shot through me like lightning. I twisted, trying to pull free, but they dragged me toward the center again. The sigils beneath my feet flared to life, bright, white, merciless. Not again. Moon above, not again. I could already feel the phantom pain of the last attempt crawling up my spine. "Shift," a man shouted. "Make the cursed girl howl," a woman called. "Let the king see what she really is." My pulse hammered. My lungs tightened. The whole world pressed in on me, crushing from all sides. Ardent did nothing to stop them. He only watched. Like he was waiting for something. Like he already knew something. My knees hit the stone as the sigils burned. I gasped, feeling heat travel through my limbs, forcing, pushing, demanding a wolf that would not come. My fingers curled against the ground, my teeth clenched, my body shook. The arena blurred, the crowd roared. My heart raced so fast it felt like a trapped animal. I choked out a breath. "I'm trying," but the words dissolved under the pain. The heat intensified. My bones groaned. My breath hitched, shallow and frantic. I couldn't do this. I couldn't fail in front of him again. A cold sweat clung to my spine. My skin prickled with dread. My vision tunneled. Then, enough. The single word sliced through the chaos. Instant silence. Ardent stood at the edge of the circle, his expression unreadable, his gaze fixed on me. Not with contempt, not with amusement, but with something sharper. Something that made my heart stutter. He stepped closer, voice low and cutting. She is holding back. Or something is holding her back. No one dared speak. The King of Stormfell was speaking about me. As if I were more than a mistake, more than an embarrassment, more than the unwanted Omega they all expected to break. And for the first time in 19 years, I wasn't sure I hated being seen. But being seen? By him? That terrified me more than anything. I used to think the worst pain was humiliation, but pain has layers. And the circle of exposure was built to peel them open one by one. 2 ritualists seized my arms before I could gather my breath, hauling me across the stone platform. My feet scraped against the ground, toes raw, steps stumbling as the crowd cheered for a cruelty they had witnessed too many times to question. "Mira of High Moon," one of them intoned, voice like cold ash. "By decree of the Dominion and the King present, you will stand within the circle of exposure." I tried to pull back, my voice cracking. "Please, don't." My plea vanished under the roar of the crowd. The circle waited at the center of the arena, carved deep into the stone. A ring of old magic, created for one purpose: to force a shift from Omegas too weak to transform on their own. I'd heard whispers about it. I never believed I'd be dragged into it. The moment the ritualists shoved me inside, the entire ring ignited. White gold flames racing like serpents along the ancient runes. I froze. Heat slammed up through the soles of my feet, climbing up my legs like fire eating through dry leaves. The pain was so sharp, so immediate, I nearly collapsed. I choked on a breath. "Stand," one ritualist snapped, "or this will be worse." Worse? This already felt like my bones were unraveling. I forced myself upright, but my knees trembled violently. The fire sigils flared brighter, casting a harsh glow around me. My breath fogged in the cold air, though the flames beneath me were blistering. My spine jerked, not from fear, from something inside me. A pressure, a knocking, a faint scratching against the walls of my bones. My wolf. The wolf I'd never heard, never met, never felt. She pushed, weakly, desperately, as if trying to claw her way toward the surface. "Shift!" someone yelled from the stands. "Make her show the beast." "She's lying. She has no wolf." Their jeers crashed into me, louder than the crackle of fire. I clenched my jaw and tried to breathe through the agony drilling into my back. My fingers curled into fists, nails digging into my palms. My wolf pushed again, like a heartbeat out of rhythm, like claws dragging across stone, like a whisper fighting to become a scream. I gasped. "I feel something good," the ritualist muttered, "then push harder." As if it were that simple, as if pain didn't blind me, as if fear didn't choke me. The flames surged, licking up past my ankles, brushing my knees with searing heat that made my vision blur. My spine arched involuntarily. A cry tore from my throat, raw, helpless. The entire arena erupted with excitement. "Look at her! She's breaking! She'll die before she shifts!" My lungs tightened. I'd known this would hurt. I hadn't expected it to feel like my body was being reforged from the inside out. My knees buckled. I collapsed onto my hands, the stone scorching hot. My breath stuttered in painful bursts. "Mira." My head jerked up. It was him. King Ardent stood at the edge of the circle, his expression carved from thunder. His brows drew together, not in anger, but in concentration. He was studying me again, the way one studies a storm about to break. "You feel your wolf," he said quietly, almost too soft for the crowd to hear. "Don't you?" I swallowed, tears burning my eyes. "Yes," I gasped. I I think so." My wolf scratched again, harder, like claws raking across cracking ice. The fire surged a second time, brighter, hotter, and I screamed, the sound ripping out of me as if dragged by the flames themselves. I doubled over, pain exploding up my spine like lightning. "Mira!" Ardent barked. But I couldn't answer. I couldn't do anything. The world narrowed to agony, to heat, to the push inside me, the pressure building. My elbows hit the ground, my cheek pressed against hot stone. My breaths turned into ragged gasps. The crowd blurred into streaks of color and sound. The only thing sharp, the only thing real, was the tearing sensation deep inside me. She wanted out. My wolf wanted out. But she wasn't strong enough. Not yet. The ritualists exchanged uneasy looks. Even they could feel the unstable magic thrumming through the air. Ardent stepped closer, his voice cutting through the ringing in my ears. "She's not resisting," he said. "She's held back." Held back? By what? By who? My vision dimmed around the edges, the fire roaring louder. My wolf pressed, one final desperate shove. And then everything collapsed. My body, the circle, the world. I hit the stone with a choked sob, shaking uncontrollably. The fire dimmed, but the pressure inside me did not. It grew. A storm gathering itself. A howl trapped behind glass. A silver force straining against its cage. Arden's eyes locked onto mine. And for the first time, I saw fear in the king's gaze. Not fear of failure. Fear of what was coming. Fear of what I was becoming. Pain swallowed me whole. It wasn't the fire sigils anymore. It wasn't the heat burning up my legs. It wasn't even the jeering voices above me, hungry for my collapse. This pain came from inside, a pressure so violent it felt like my bones were being cracked open from the marrow outward. My spine arched off the stone, my throat tight with a scream I couldn't release. Something inside me was rising, something ancient, something furious. I clawed at the ground, nails scraping stone. My vision blurred with tears. The world tilted. And then the moon flared, white hot, blinding. The entire sky seemed to ignite in a silver blaze, pouring light straight down onto me as if the moon itself had opened its eye and fixed it on my trembling body. Gasps erupted across the arena. People shielded their faces. Some fell back. I barely heard them, because the light hit me like a lightning strike. I screamed. Finally. Horribly. And the sound ripped out of me as my bones shattered and reformed all at once. My back bowed sharply, my ribs cracked, my fingers contorted. Heat exploded from my chest, not the heat of flames, but the heat of something alive, my wolf. She was no longer scratching, no longer whispering, no longer begging. She was breaking through. "Mira!" I heard someone shout. Ardent, maybe, though the world was warping too fast to know. I couldn't respond, couldn't think, couldn't breathe. The pressure surged, higher, brighter, unstoppable. And then I exploded. Not into blood, not into ash, into light. A violent burst of white silver erupted from my body, swallowing the circle of exposure, swallowing the sigils, swallowing the screams of the crowd. My skin dissolved into moonfire, my bones melted into silver beams. The world vanished in a single, deafening pulse, and a wolf, my wolf, tore free, huge, glowing, blinding. Her fur shimmered like molten moonlight, every strand flickering with liquid silver. Her paws struck the stone with enough force to send cracks racing across the arena floor. I felt everything. Her breath was mine. Her heartbeat thundered inside my chest. Her instincts roared through my veins. I saw through her eyes, and the world looked different. Sharper, brighter, colder. The fear in the spectators' faces wasn't a blur anymore. It was crystal clear. Someone screamed, "It's a silver! A silver wolf!" And the terror spread like wildfire. The fires around the circle, flames that had tormented me moments ago, sputtered violently and died as if bowing to a superior force. The stone pillars lining the arena cracked down their centers. Dust rained from the high arches. The ground trembled beneath us. And then, my wolf lifted her head. We both felt it. That pull, that instinct, that command from something older than kingdoms. She howled. Our first howl. It tore through the arena like a shockwave, rattling stone, shaking banners, sending a cold shiver through every living being present. So loud, so raw, so ancient. People collapsed to their knees, clutching their ears. Some fainted, some cried, some whispered prayers. The sound wasn't just noise, it was power. It was prophecy. It was a call the world had forgotten to fear. When the last echoes faded, silence flooded the arena. A silence so deep it felt like the entire kingdom was holding its breath. My wolf lowered her head slowly, blinking with silver-touched eyes. She was aware. Not wild, not lost, present. Every person in the stands stared at me like they were looking at a ghost, a weapon, a myth, a monster. Even the ritualists had fallen backward, scrambling away on their hands. Only one person stood steady, ardent, the Alpha King, shadowed in moonlight, watching me not with horror, not with panic, but with recognition, as if he had been waiting for this, for me. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes, his striking, storm-lit eyes, were full of something I couldn't name. Reverence, fear, awe, and something else, hidden deeper. I tried to move, but my wolf anchored herself, her massive frame rooted to the cracked stone. She was trembling, not from weakness, but from the force of what she had become, what we had become. The unwanted Omega, the cursed girl. No, not anymore. I was the silver wolf who made an entire arena fall silent, the silver wolf who made the moon flare, the silver wolf who made the throne tremble. And every single person here knew it, especially the king watching me like I had just rewritten destiny. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. My wolf, massive, silver, glowing, stood trembling in the center of the shattered arena, every hair on her body humming with power I didn't understand. My own thoughts pulsed through her, mingling with instincts so old they felt older than the throne itself. The crowd kept their distance, scattered across the stands like broken pieces of fear. No one dared move. No one dared speak. Except him. King Ardent stepped forward, not cautiously, not fearfully, not with the trembling hesitation of the others. He walked toward me, toward us, with the kind of deliberate calm a man used only when approaching something sacred. Each step echoed against the cracked stone. Each one tightened something in my chest. My wolf's ears flattened, not in aggression, but in confusion. No alpha ever approached a newly shifted wolf like this, especially not one radiating unstable, blinding power. Yet Ardent moved as though he had been waiting for this exact moment. I felt her, my wolf, lower her head, silver light flickering off her fur. She didn't snarl. She didn't bare her teeth. She simply watched him, breathing in his scent, recognizing something I couldn't name. Ardent stopped just 3 paces away. Then, he knelt, one knee touching the cracked stone, head bowed slightly, an Alpha King kneeling for no one, until now. My heart jolted so violently it felt like it might crack too. His voice dropped, quiet, reverent, edged with something that made the air shiver. Moonborn, he whispered, the blood we thought lost. Moonborn. The word struck me like a memory that wasn't mine. My wolf tilted her head, a low sound rumbling in her chest, uncertain, curious, caught between instinct and destiny. Ardent lifted his gaze then. Those storm-colored eyes met mine through the silver haze of my wolf's form, and something inside me crumpled. For 19 years, no one had looked at me with anything but disdain, pity, or disappointment. But he looked at me like I had never been small, never been weak, never been unwanted. A tremor moved through my wolf's body, through me. And in the next breath, the silver light that held her shape shattered inward. Bones cracked, muscles twisted, the world spun. I collapsed onto the ground, human again, naked and shaking uncontrollably. The cold air bit into my skin, but my body was too exhausted to react. Every breath felt like a new wound. I tried to curl in on myself, arms wrapped tight across my chest, humiliation burning hotter than the sigils ever had. Tears gathered at the edges of my eyes. I expected mockery. I expected commands. I expected cold detachment. Instead, something warm settled over my shoulders. Ardent's cloak. Thick, heavy, smelling faintly of frost and pine and something sharper beneath it. His hands didn't touch me, just the fabric, but the gesture alone carved through the humiliation suffocating me. I stared at the stone beneath me, afraid to look up. Shame pressed down on me like a mountain. I had shifted in front of thousands, destroyed part of the arena, lost control, collapsed, exposed myself. I didn't deserve his cloak, didn't deserve his protection, didn't deserve anyone's. My voice cracked. I wasn't supposed to. His hand appeared in my peripheral vision, resting lightly on the ground beside me, not touching me, just near enough that I could feel the heat radiating from it. Mira, he murmured, and my name in his voice felt like a blanket settling over a wound. You are never unwanted. I froze. No one had ever said that to me, not once in 19 years. Arden exhaled slowly, as though revealing something heavy. They simply feared what you might become. I swallowed hard, my throat burning. What? What am I? I whispered. His eyes softened, not with pity, but with something deeper. Something I wasn't ready to understand. Moonborn, he repeated. A bloodline our history believed extinct, a power the throne itself recognizes. I shook my head weakly. I'm no one. You, he said, voice low, firm, unshakable, are the most dangerous truth this kingdom has seen in centuries. Dangerous. Truth. Kingdom. The words curled around me like a prophecy. I felt the shame inside me shift, still heavy, still raw, but now tangled with something gentler, something unbearably tender. He draped more of the cloak around me, careful, slow, no rush, no disgust, no fear, only protection, only presence, only recognition. Ardent rose to his feet, not above me, not towering in dominance, but as though preparing to shield me from the world that had just watched me break. As though he had already decided. The silver wolf was his to protect, and I was no longer alone. I barely had time to breathe before the world moved again. The cloak around my shoulders was still warm from Arden's hands when the marshal stumbled forward, bowing so deeply it looked painful. Fear rippled through the arena like a second wind. Your Majesty, he stammered, this Omega, she is dangerous, unstable, she must be contained. Ardent didn't even look at him. This girl, he said, voice carrying like rolling thunder, is coming with me. A ripple of shock tore across the stands. Bodies jerked back. Mouths fell open. Whispers rose like frightened birds. Coming with him. The words didn't make sense in my ears. My heart slammed so loudly I felt it in my fingertips. My foster mother pushed forward, her face twisting between fury and fear. "Your Majesty, she belongs to High Moon. We raised her. She is nothing," my foster brother shouted, emboldened by the crowd. "A curse. A freak. You cannot take—" Ardent turned. Just turned. A slow, controlled motion, but the moment his gaze landed on them, the entire group flinched. His next breath came out as a low growl, a sound that vibrated through stone, a warning primal enough to silence wolves. "Stand down." His voice was a command carved from steel. My pack froze. My foster mother stumbled back. My brother swallowed hard, his bravado dissolving into terror. Then Arden's eyes returned to me. He didn't offer a hand. He didn't order me to move. He simply waited, a quiet expectation in his gaze, and somehow I understood. My legs wobbled as I rose, clutching his cloak around me. Every step felt unsteady, unreal, like walking through the remains of a dream I hadn't woken from yet. The king's guards formed a tight perimeter around me, but not like captors, more like escorts, more like protection. I didn't know what to do with the strange warmth blooming inside my chest at that thought. We left the arena through the eastern gate, torches lining the long walkway to the waiting royal carriage. I could still hear whispers behind me. "She's dangerous. She's powerful. She's going to bring ruin. No, she's going to change everything." For the first time in my life, no one called me weak. That alone sent another shock through me. Ardent stepped into the carriage first. I hesitated at the edge, fingers tightening in the cloak, unsure whether it was right, proper, to sit beside a king. But he looked at me, eyes steady. "Come." Not harsh, not demanding, just certain I would obey. I climbed in, heart hammering. The door closed behind us. The carriage lurched forward, and the only sound left was the rhythmic clatter of wheels against stone. I stared out the window at the dark ridge, the lingering lights of High Moon fading behind us. My breath quivered. My entire life had existed within that ridge. Now I was leaving it behind. "Why me?" I whispered. It wasn't a question meant for royalty. It wasn't elegant or political. It wasn't the kind of inquiry one asked a king of an empire. But I was too tired, too overwhelmed, too raw to care. Ardent didn't scoff. He didn't sigh. He didn't treat it like a foolish question. His answer came instantly, without hesitation, without doubt. "Because you shook the throne." My breath caught. He didn't say the arena. He didn't say the ritual circle. He didn't say the crowd or the kingdom. He said the throne. My mind scrambled to process that. "I didn't mean to," I said softly. "Power never asks permission," he replied. "It simply reveals itself when the world is ready, or when the world is breaking." I swallowed hard. "But I'm not. I'm not strong. I don't know what I am." His gaze never left me. "You are Moonborn," he said. "And that is strength in a form this kingdom has not seen in centuries." My chest tightened. Moonborn. A word that still didn't feel real. "I don't understand," I murmured. "You will." Ardent shifted slightly, eyes narrowing with thought. "When your power erupted, the Stormfell throne cracked. Only a Moonborn can do that." The air in the carriage felt heavier. "Which means," he continued, "that your existence does not merely matter. It threatens the balance of power itself." A shiver rolled through me, fear and something dangerously close to awe mixing in my veins. "I don't want to threaten anyone," I whispered. "Good," he said. "Those who seek power are rarely worthy of it, but those who fear their own strength often are." I looked down at my trembling hands, wrapped in his cloak. I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel like anything except a girl being carried toward a fate far too big for her small, fractured heart. But somewhere beneath that fear, a seed of hope stirred, fragile, uncertain, but alive. And as Stormfell Keep's distant silhouette rose over the horizon, dark, towering, ancient, I felt the truth settle in my bones. Whatever waited for me there, it would change everything. Stormfell Keep wasn't a palace, it was a mountain pretending to be a kingdom. Black stone towers rose like fangs against the sky, clouds curling around their peaks. Every corridor hummed with ancient magic, the air thick with the lingering scent of storms. Wolves patrolled everywhere, real wolves, not shifted soldiers, moving with the silent precision of creatures born to darkness. I clutched Ardent's cloak tighter around me as we walked through the great hall. The torches along the walls burned with silver-blue flames, their smoke curling in delicate threads. My footsteps echoed too loudly. I felt out of place, out of breath, out of myself. Ardent walked beside me, silent as shadow, but his presence pressed against me like a shield. The guards who followed us didn't look at me the way the High Moon crowd had. They didn't sneer or whisper. They watched me with guarded confusion, as if trying to understand why their king had brought an Omega into the Hall of Kings. "We're going somewhere private," Ardent said, as though sensing the tremor in my breath. Private, safe, words that had never belonged to my life. We reached a towering obsidian door engraved with runes older than Stormfell itself. The guards pulled it open and cold air swept out, carrying the faint metallic scent of ancient magic. Ardent nodded for me to step inside, and the moment I did, my knees nearly buckled. The chamber was huge, vaulted ceilings carved with constellations, walls lined with relics, moonlight spilling in through a high skylight. But my eyes caught on only one thing: the throne. A massive obsidian seat carved from a single slab of stone, rising like a shadow-given shape. I'd seen illustrations of it in dusty books. Every wolf had. It was said to be unbreakable, eternal, a symbol of Stormfell's power. Except it wasn't whole anymore. A jagged crack split the throne straight down the middle, not a thin fracture, a deep wound, a tremor frozen in stone. I moved closer without meaning to. The air around the throne hummed, vibrating along my skin like a whisper. I swallowed. What happened to it?" Ardent joined me, his expression unreadable. "When your wolf howled," he said softly, "the throne cracked." My breath stuttered. No, that's not possible," I whispered. I didn't. "It recognized a rival," he finished, voice gentle but firm. The room seemed to tilt. The stone beneath my feet lurched. I clutched the cloak tighter, trying to steady myself. A rival to the throne. Me? My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Ardent stepped closer, the shadows shifting around him like they obeyed him. He reached out, not touching me but close enough for his warmth to brush my skin. "There is lore," he said quietly. "Old enough that many forgot it. Old enough that some hoped it would never return." His gaze locked onto mine, sharp and unyielding. "When silver howls," he recited, "kings must kneel." My lungs emptied all at once. "That's just a myth," I said weakly. "Old stories, scare tales." "No," his voice hardened. "It is prophecy." Prophecy. The word shattered something inside me. I stumbled backward, shaking my head. "I'm not a prophecy. I'm not a threat. I'm—" "You," he interrupted, "are moonborn, and the throne responds to moonborn power." My throat closed. He stepped back just enough to give me space, watching every trembling breath that left my body. "My wolf isn't. She's not even fully grown," I whispered. I barely shifted. I couldn't control. "And yet you cracked the unbreakable throne." Panic surged through me like a tide. If the throne saw me as a rival, if the prophecy said kings must kneel, Then what did that make me? A usurper? A danger? A weapon? My fingers dug into the soft fabric of his cloak. I didn't want this. I didn't want any of this. I know. His voice softened. Something rare, something real. You lived your whole life believing you were unwanted, that you were small, weak, invisible. He paused. But you were never any of those things. You were hidden. My vision blurred. Hidden. Not. Unwanted. Hidden. Hidden from who? I whispered. Arden's eyes flickered to the cracked throne. From those who know what a moonborn could do. I felt cold all over. I don't want to take anything from you, I said, voice trembling. I don't want to challenge you. I don't want your throne. His expression shifted. Something unreadable, a shadow crossing his gaze. Good, he said quietly, because power that seeks the throne is dangerous, but power that fears the throne. His eyes held mine, unwavering. Is the kind the throne itself respects. I stood there shaking, staring at the damage I had caused, at the prophecy tied to my howl, at the throne that trembled for me. My life had been small until this moment, but now destiny pressed against my skin like a blade, and it was only the beginning. If Stormfell Keep felt cold when I first entered it, the royal feast taught me what true winter tasted like. Not the kind that froze rivers, the kind that lived behind eyes. Dozens of nobles filled the great hall, seated at long tables carved with runes. Chandeliers dripped silver light over polished stone floors. Servants, silent, swift, moved like shadows between the tables, and every single noble stared at me, not with curiosity, with hatred. She brought the crack. Moonborn, dangerous. She's a cursed Omega, an omen. She must be executed before the moon chooses her instead. Their voices slithered between the clatter of goblets and knives. They didn't bother to whisper. They wanted me to hear. I kept my gaze on my plate, though I had no appetite. My fingers shook as they rested in my lap, hidden beneath the table to keep anyone from seeing how terrified I actually was. Ardent sat beside me, close enough that the heat from his arm bled into my skin, close enough that I could hear the steady rhythm of his breath. But he didn't touch me. He hadn't. Not once since draping his cloak around my shoulders at the arena. Not on the carriage ride. Not in the throne room. Not now. He didn't need to. His presence alone was its own kind of shield. Still, I felt raw, exposed. Every hateful whisper pierced like a blade. She'll destroy Stormfell. The throne trembled for her. Treasonous magic. She'll dethrone him. Just like the prophecy. If the king has sense, he'll kill her before she shifts again. My grip tightened under the table. I shouldn't have been here. This hall wasn't built for me. This kingdom wasn't meant for me. Their world wasn't shaped with room for a girl like Mira of High Moon. When I dared glance up, a noblewoman met my gaze with a sneer so sharp it felt like a slap. You don't belong in this hall, she hissed. Moonborn or not, you are still an Omega. Heat flooded my cheeks. Shame, humiliation, that old sting I thought I'd left behind in the arena. I lowered my eyes, wishing I could shrink into my chair, dissolve into something too small for anyone to see. Ardent didn't move, but the air shifted. His attention cut through the hall like a blade. Though he didn't touch me, his hand rested on the table beside mine, close enough to remind me I wasn't sitting alone. The nobleman across from us slammed his goblet down. Your Majesty, he said loudly, you must command her to shift again. We need to test the extent of her power. My stomach twisted. No, not again, not here, not in front of all of them. She is too dangerous, another noble added. For the safety of Stormfell, we insist. Insist. As if they had any authority. The noble leaned forward, voice dripping poison. Shift, girl. My breath hitched. The room spun just slightly. The heat in my veins lurched forward, unsteady and wild. My wolf rose, uncomfortable under the demand, agitated, cornered, uncertain. Shift! A sound cut him off. Not a growl, a snarl. From the king. A real, vicious, territorial snarl that made every candle flame in the hall flicker. Arden's chair scraped back as he stood, shadows racing up the walls behind him like living creatures. His voice cracked across the hall like thunder. Try to command her again. His eyes glowed with something violent and ancient. And I will end you where you stand. Silence swallowed the noble, swallowed the hall, swallowed the world. Every wolf, noble, servant, guard, bowed their head instinctively, recognizing the primal authority in his voice. My pulse pounded in my throat. Ardent wasn't defending a political asset. He wasn't defending prophecy. He wasn't defending the moonborn legacy. He was defending me. My shame faltered, slowly, trembling, giving way to something fragile. Validation, a feeling I didn't know how to hold yet. A warmth I didn't trust. A protection I wasn't sure I deserved. But the fear didn't vanish completely, because as the nobles shrank back in terror, their hatred only sharpened. They would blame me. They would want revenge. They would find a way to hurt me if they ever got the chance. And deep inside, my wolf stirred, uneasy. I don't belong here, I whispered, barely audible. Arden's gaze softened as he lowered himself back into his chair. You belong, he said quietly, where your power is recognized, not feared. But recognition wasn't safety, and as the hall whispered with new, sharper hostility, I realized belonging might be more dangerous than exile ever was. The feast had ended hours ago, but its echoes clung to my skin like smoke, the nobles' stares, their hatred, their whispered threats. All of it churned inside me as Arden guided me through a quiet wing of Stormfell Keep. No guards followed, no courtiers lingered. Only the soft flicker of silver torches lit our path. He said nothing at first. He didn't need to. His silence wasn't cold. It was knowing. Heavy. Waiting. When we reached a narrow stairwell spiraling upward into a tower, he paused, glancing back at me as if giving me the chance to refuse. I didn't. I followed him. The climb left me breathless, but something else made my chest tighter. The awareness that he had brought me somewhere private. Somewhere the court couldn't touch me. At the top, a door creaked open into a round chamber bathed in moonlight. Tall windows stretched from floor to ceiling, their glass catching the glow of the full moon. The air was cool, sharp, alive. Ardent stepped inside, stopping near the largest window, his silhouette carved from shadow and silver. This is the moonlit tower, he said, a place where truth tends to surface. I swallowed. Truth is dangerous. So is silence, he murmured, especially yours. My heart thudded painfully. I wrapped my arms around myself, staring at the stone floor. The shame of earlier crept back in, like it always did when memories tried to rise. My voice wavered before I could stop it. I don't talk about the past. Ardent turned toward me fully, the moon catching the sharp lines of his face. Tonight, he said quietly, you will. A tremor moved through me. I didn't understand why he cared, why he was trying, why he had knelt before my wolf, defended me before his court, brought me here, to the tallest place in the keep, where secrets weighed more than stone. Tell me who abandoned you, he said. It wasn't a command. It was an invitation, gentle but immovable. My breath shook. I hadn't told anyone, not once in 19 years. The truth lived in me like a bruise that never healed. To speak it felt like tearing open a wound I had learned to hide so well I forgot it was bleeding. But his eyes, they didn't push. They didn't pity. They waited. So I let the words fall. They forged it, I whispered. Forged what? Ardent stepped closer, voice low. The document saying I was wolfless. I pressed a hand to my stomach, fighting the knot twisting there. The one that labeled me defective, unbonded, worthless. His jaw tightened. I breathed in slowly, the chill of the tower grounding me just enough. And the shift trials. I swallowed. They were never meant to work. They sabotaged them. How? He asked, though I knew he already suspected. They placed moon-dulling ash in the ritual smoke. It suppresses wolf instincts. My throat burned. I didn't know at first. I thought it was me. Thought I was a failure, a disappointment, a curse. My voice cracked. Thought they were right. Arden's eyes darkened, a storm gathering behind them. And your wolf? He asked quietly. Why didn't she rise sooner? A tear slipped before I could stop it. They drugged her, I whispered. The herbalist mixed suppressants into my food, just enough to keep her weak, quiet, trapped. A sharp inhale left him, barely audible, but it cut through the air like a snapped blade. My legs wobbled. I sank to the cold stone floor, arms wrapped around my knees. My wolf stirred weakly inside me, as if remembering every time she had tried to claw her way out and failed. As if she, too, had been waiting to be heard. I wasn't abandoned, I said hoarsely. I was silenced. Ardent lowered himself slowly, kneeling across from me, his shadow draped over mine, steady and grounding. They did not abandon you, he said softly. I lifted my eyes. His gaze struck like lightning, not sharp, but bright, fierce, unyielding. They imprisoned a queen. The words didn't fit me. They felt foreign, too big, too heavy. But something inside me cracked. Not painfully, but like a door opening to a room I had never dared enter. Queen, moonborn, wanted. Ardent reached out, not touching me, but close enough that the warmth of his hand brushed my cheek like a promise. You survived what would have destroyed others, he said. You were meant to rise. They feared that. So they caged you. My breath shook violently. I'm scared, I whispered. Good. His voice softened. Courage does not exist without fear, and you will need courage for what comes next. I stared at him, tears slipping silently down my cheeks. He didn't look away. Neither did I. For the first time in my life, telling someone the truth didn't feel like falling apart. It felt like being seen. Really, truly seen. And in that moonlit tower, with the world quiet around us, something fragile and dangerous sparked between us. Connection. Not forced, not demanded, not taken. Given. And my heart, battered and bruised and uncertain, didn't know how to hold it, but it wanted to try. They dressed it up like ceremony, silk banners, silver braziers, moonstone inlaid in the marble floors. But when I stepped into the High Council chamber, all I saw was an execution stage with better lighting. The counselors sat in a crescent of obsidian chairs, their robes embroidered with constellations, their expressions carved from stone. Pale light streamed from the glass dome above, turning the chamber into a kind of sanctified arena. At the center of the floor, a circle of engraved sigils waited. For me. The trial of the Howl will now commence, one of the heralds announced, voice echoing off the walls. Subject, Mira of No House. Status, unbonded Omega. Wrong. Arden's voice sliced clean through the room. He stood behind me, just outside the sigil ring, clad in black and storm gray, his crown a glint of silver at the edge of my vision. He didn't bother to raise his tone. He didn't need to. The air shifted around us, like the chamber itself listened. She is Mira of Stormfell, he said, gaze never leaving the council. And this trial will reflect that. A murmur rippled through the rows of robed figures. Your Majesty, one of them said tightly, we are here to determine if she is a threat to the throne. Titles are premature. If this is about the throne, Ardent replied calmly, then every word you choose matters. Proceed. My pulse thudded against my ribs. If she fails, she dies. If she succeeds, she becomes a political threat. I knew the unspoken line. A threat to the throne rarely lived long. The head counselor lifted an ancient staff, crystal at the top catching the moonlight. Mira, he intoned, you will stand in the circle of judgment and shift under council supervision. If you cannot demonstrate control and stability, the law demands your execution. If you can, your existence will be deliberated as a matter of state. Deliberated. Like I was a policy, an inconvenient law they wanted to bend or burn. My legs felt like air and stone at the same time, weightless but heavy enough to sink me. I stepped into the circle. Moon sigils lay etched in the marble beneath my feet, dormant and pale. The engravings felt faintly warm through the thin soles of my shoes like sleeping embers waiting to be stoked. I exhaled slowly. Behind me, I felt him. Ardent, not touching, but close. His presence pressed between my shoulder blades like a vow and a warning both. If at any moment you lose control, a counselor began. I will handle it, Ardent cut in. My fingers curled. They didn't believe I could control my wolf. They didn't want to. A chaotic silver beast made for a better excuse to eliminate me than a steady, thinking queen. A tremor ran through me, not from fear this time, but from something deeper. My wolf. She was awake now, no longer drugged, no longer muffled beneath lies and potions. I could feel her pacing inside my chest, sharp and restless. We're doing this on our terms, I whispered under my breath. The staff slammed once against the marble. Begin. The chamber went silent. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then I closed my eyes. I didn't think of the arena where they mocked me, called me cursed, forced a false failure from my bones. I didn't think of the forged documents, the drugged meals, the nights I begged the moon to answer and heard only my own ragged breathing. I thought of the tower, of Ardent's voice saying, "They imprisoned a queen." I thought of the way he knelt to my wolf, unafraid, of his cloak on my shoulders when I was shaking and naked and certain I was nothing. I thought of the first time my wolf howled and the world cracked in answer. Heat bloomed under my skin, a slow rising tide. I let it. Bones ached, but not with the wild, tearing agony of the forced circle. This pain unfolded with purpose, like my body was finally obeying a script written long before I was born. My spine arched, my breath hitched, and then I stepped forward into myself. The shift rolled through me like a wave, smooth and deliberate. One heartbeat, I stood on two shaking legs. The next, silver fur rippled across my vision, and the world sharpened. Sound, scent, light, everything erupted into clarity. I opened my eyes as the wolf. Gasps burst from the council. I was not stumbling this time, not screaming, not breaking. I stood still and tall in the center of their circle, massive paws planted on their perfect marble, silver fur lit from within like molten moonlight. My reflection shimmered in the polished floor, eyes bright, alive, aware. Moon sigils flared beneath my paws, awakening one by one in a cascade of glowing lines. They streaked across the chamber floor, racing up the walls like living light. The counselors recoiled as the light brushed their robes, as if touched by something they'd spent their whole lives trying to control but never truly understood. "Mira," someone whispered, By the goddess, I drew in a breath and howled. The sound tore through the chamber, not as a broken, panicked scream, but as something old and powerful and endlessly sure of itself. My howl shook the air. The dome above rattled softly in its frame. Dust fell from ancient carvings. Power vibrated through me, echoing in my bones, in the marble, in the sigils now blazing full and bright. The glow climbed the pillars, etched itself over carved ancestors, and crowned the chamber in silver fire. Counselors clapped hands over their ears, stumbling back. One dropped his staff. Another fell to his knees, eyes wide with something I recognized instantly. Not hatred, not disdain, fear. And beneath that, reluctant reverence. The trial of the howl was supposed to prove I was unstable, unworthy, a danger to the realm. Instead, it proved something they had not planned for at all. I wasn't just a wolf. I wasn't just an omega. I was a force their own laws had summoned and now had to face. When my howl faded, silence crushed in. The sigils still glowed, humming faintly against my paws like a heartbeat connected to the roots of Stormfell itself. Slowly, I turned my head. Ardent stood where he had been from the start, behind me, unwavering. He didn't look surprised. He looked vindicated. He met my gaze, no fear in his eyes, only a fierce, quiet pride that wrapped around my throat like a collar I chose to wear. The head counselor rose shakily, fingers gripping his armrest. Her power, he rasped. If she lives, she threatens the balance of the crown. Ardent stepped forward, his shadow meeting the edge of my circle. No, he said softly, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. She is the balance. Their eyes darted between him and me, between King and Silver Wolf, between law and something older than law. Power hummed in the air, thick and undeniable. Fear had brought me here. But recognition would not let them forget me again. After the trial of the howl, the council chamber emptied in a chaos of hushed panic and political calculations, but I barely noticed them leaving. My body was still vibrating with the shift, with the moon sigil's glow, with the echo of my own howl ringing in my bones. Ardent didn't speak. He didn't touch me. He simply walked beside me through the quiet corridors of Stormfell Keep, close enough that I could feel the static in the air between us. When we reached a smaller chamber overlooking the moonlit courtyard, he pushed the door open and stepped aside, letting me enter first. The door shut softly behind us. Silence pressed in. I stood in the center of the room, hands trembling, heart still racing far too fast. My wolf prowled under my skin, restless, electric. She was no longer silent, no longer sleeping. She paced, alert, drawn to one presence only, him. I felt him move behind me, not touching, not even brushing against me, but close enough that the fine hairs at the back of my neck rose. You controlled your shift, Ardent said quietly. None of them expected that. I didn't know I could. You did more than shift. His voice dropped lower. You claimed the room. Heat flared beneath my skin. I turned toward him too quickly, breath catching when I realized how close he was. Only a breath separated us. His eyes, stormlight and something I didn't dare name, locked onto mine. My wolf reacted instantly. My pulse jumped. My breath hitched. A low hum of heat pulsed under my ribs. Instinctual. Ancient. I stepped back on reflex, but the wall met my shoulders. Ardent didn't move closer. He didn't cage me in. But he looked at me like I was something he had spent his entire life searching for and had finally found. His gaze drifted to my hands. Mira. Just my name, but it slid through me like a spark. My fingers twitched, and before I could stop myself, one hand lifted slightly. I didn't know why. I didn't mean to. But he reached out. slowly, letting me see every inch between us narrow. His fingers brushed mine. A breath, a shock, a spark so sharp I gasped. Electricity raced up my arm, down my spine, curling heat into the deepest parts of me. My knees weakened. My wolf surged, pressing against my skin, wanting contact, needing it. I swallowed hard. What? What was that? He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for centuries. The bond responding. His thumb brushed my knuckle, barely there, but enough to send another coil of heat through me. Your wolf? And mine? I stared up at him, chest rising too quickly. My heartbeat pulsed in my ears, loud and frantic. His hand slid into mine fully, warm, steady, grounding. I didn't pull away. I shouldn't feel this, I whispered. I know. His voice softened. But you do. His other hand lifted, stopping just shy of my cheek. May I? A question. A choice. A line I could refuse. Except refusing felt impossible. I nodded. His palm cupped my cheek, fingers brushing the edge of my jaw. Heat bloomed beneath his touch, rolling across my skin in a flush of silver light. Faint, shimmering, barely visible, but real. He saw it. He breathed out a shaky laugh, awed. Moonlight reacts to you. My knees nearly gave out. Then he leaned in. Slowly, beautifully, dangerously. His forehead touched mine first, a whisper of contact that made my breath catch. My wolf pushed forward, a soft, needy sound humming in my chest. Ardent, I whispered, trembling. He lingered there, waiting, asking without words. I closed the distance. Our lips met in a slow, aching kiss. Heat soared. Silver light spilled across my skin, shimmering faintly. His hand slid to the back of my neck, fingers threading through my hair, drawing me closer with a gentleness that nearly broke me. His lips moved against mine like a promise and a warning, each touch deeper, hungrier. My entire body leaned into him, melting, trembling, awakening. He pulled me closer then, suddenly broke away, breathing hard, chest rising too fast, eyes burning with something fierce and restrained. If I take one more step, his voice was rough, unsteady, stripped bare. I will never let you go. The words hit me like a second shift. I stared at him, heart pounding so hard it felt like a living thing. Is that a threat? I whispered. No. His voice was a vow. It's the truth. Desire coiled inside me, not reckless, not wild, but powerful. Sure. My wolf pressed against my ribs in agreement. I took a shaky breath. Maybe. My voice shook. I don't want you to stop. He closed his eyes, jaw tightening like he was holding himself together with sheer force. Mira, he whispered, shaken. You don't know what you're saying. I stepped closer, my hand brushing his chest, feeling the thunder of his heartbeat. I know exactly what I'm saying. His eyes flew open, and in them, I saw it. The king, the man, the wolf. All of them pulled toward me like I was the moon itself. Desire burned, restraint held, but something new ignited between us. Awakening, and neither of us could pretend it wasn't real anymore. Stormfell Keep was vast, but that night, it felt too small to hold my thoughts. After the trial, after the kiss, after Ardent's warning, sleep would not come. My wolf paced beneath my skin, restless, protective, awakened in ways she had never been before. I lay in the guest chamber, staring at the etchings on the ceiling, moon phases carved in a perfect circle. Silver light spilled in from the arched window, casting long shadows across the stone floor. For the first time, I felt something close to peace. But peace is a fragile creature in a kingdom built on fear. I didn't hear them enter. Not at first. A whisper of movement, the faintest shift of air, and then a scent. Sharp, metallic, laced with poison. My eyes shot open. Too late. A shadow lunged across the room, blade glinting. My wolf surged. Move. I rolled off the bed just as the knife tore through the sheets where my throat had been. My feet hit the cold stone floor. Bare, trembling, but ready. 3 men. Faces masked, moonsteel weapons drawn. My pulse thundered. The silver wolf must die, one hissed. The throne will not fall to her, another growled. The king is blind with desire, the third spat. We are not. Fear punched the air from my lungs, but my wolf wasn't afraid. She rose inside me like a storm. Before I could think, my body responded with instinct carved into my blood. Lethal, ancient, unstoppable. One assassin lunged. My wolf twisted. Claws, not fully shifted, not fully human, slashed across his arm. He screamed. The others moved in, fast, coordinated, but my wolf was faster. Protect, defend, eliminate. I ducked under a blade, the metal slicing a strand of my hair, and slammed my shoulder into another attacker's chest. He crashed into the stone wall with a grunt. My vision flickered silver. The room glowed faintly around me, moonlight pulsing to my heartbeat. Another dagger swung toward my ribs. My wolf reacted before I could. My hand caught the attacker's wrist. Too strong, too precise to be human. I twisted. Bone cracked. The dagger clattered to the floor. The man shrieked. The glow around me intensified, silver spiraling off my skin like shards of light. The assassins faltered. What is she? She's not shifting. She's... Killer. Now. The last attacker charged with a moonsteel blade, its edge humming with a spell meant to cut through wolfhide. My wolf snarled inside me, a sound that vibrated through my teeth. Mine. Mine to kill. Mine to protect. He swung. My wolf didn't dodge. She attacked. I lunged, grabbing his arm, slamming him onto the ground. The knife skidded from his hand. I didn't even realize I was growling until the sound shook the window panes. The man scrambled back, panting, terrified. Please, don't... He didn't finish. My wolf silenced him. When the world finally stilled, I stood in the center of the room, chest heaving, hands trembling, the air thick with the metallic scent of blood. Silver light still glowed faintly along my arms, flickering like dying fire. The door burst open. Ardent. His eyes took in the scene in a single shattering moment. The bodies, the blood, the glow radiating off me. His expression? Fury, terror, relief, possession. He crossed the room so fast the air shifted. Mira, he breathed, grabbing my shoulders. Not harsh, but desperate. Are you hurt? I shook my head, though my body trembled violently. They tried, I didn't... His thumb brushed my cheek, grounding me. You defended yourself. As you should. Another tremor racked me. I didn't shift. She just... reacted. His eyes searched mine, fierce and aching. Your wolf knows the truth before you do. What truth? His jaw tightened. His breath trembled. That you are worth killing for. He paused. And worth dying for. My heart stuttered painfully. Ardent pulled me into his arms. Slowly. Giving me time to resist if I wanted to. I didn't. My forehead pressed against his chest. Breaths uneven. Tears blurring my vision. His cloak enveloped me, warm and safe. That faction will be dealt with, he said, voice low with controlled rage. They think eliminating you protects the throne. They do not understand. I swallowed. Understand what? His hand slid into my hair. Steady, protective, devastatingly gentle. That the throne trembled not because it fears you, he murmured, but because it recognizes you. My breath hitched. And so do I. His hold tightened, as if he'd almost lost me, as if the fear of it still shook him. In that moment, bloody, trembling, held against the chest of a king who had never let himself fear anything, I understood something terrifying and beautiful. Danger didn't push him away, it bound him to me. And for the first time, the wild loyalty burning in his eyes felt like something I might survive, or something that might destroy us both. The assassin's blood had barely dried on the stone floors when Stormfell found itself shaken again. This time, not by blades, but by truth. Ardent refused to let me sleep alone after the attack. He stayed outside my chamber door, speaking to guards in a low, deadly tone I could feel even through the walls. My wolf hovered beneath my skin, unsettled, protective, refusing to fully settle. But dawn came anyway, and with it, Elder Orwin. His arrival sent a murmur through the entire keep. I'd heard whispers about him. Stormfell's oldest scholar, older than 3 kings, older than some of the wars chronicled in the Hall of Records. He walked slowly, leaning on an ironwood staff, his gray hair braided with silver thread. But his eyes, they were sharp as moonlit ice. When he entered the grand study where Ardent had gathered a small council, every noble fell silent. "Your Majesty," Orwin rasped, bowing with a stiffness that spoke of too many years and too many secrets. "I come with a matter most grave." Ardent stood behind me, close, steady, protective. "Speak." Orwin's gaze drifted to me, not with fear, not with hatred, but with recognition. My breath caught. He withdrew a long scroll wrapped in black leather, sealed with silver wax. "Forbidden." "Where did you get that?" Ardent demanded, voice sharpening. "It was hidden," Orwin said, "by your father, and his father before him." Ardent stiffened beside me. Orwin stepped forward, placing the scroll on the table with reverence. "It is time," he murmured, "for the prophecy to be known once more." My heart thudded painfully. Prophecy. Again. The first had already shattered my world. Moonborn, rival to the throne, a wolf whose howl cracked stone. What more could possibly be said? Ardent broke the seal himself. The parchment unfurled across the table, old, crumbling at the edges, ink faded but legible where moonlight touched it. Orwin read, "The silver wolf does not destroy thrones." His voice echoed in the chamber, steady despite his age. "She reveals the king worthy to sit upon one." I swallowed hard. Orwin continued, the words gaining weight like falling stones. "When silver howls, the throne does not fear her, it listens." A tremor ran through me, through the room, through Ardent. Orwin's gaze lifted to mine. "The throne trembled not because you were dangerous," he said, "but because it recognized a ruler." My knees nearly gave out. "No," I whispered, stepping back. "No, I'm not." Ardent caught my arm, not to restrain, to steady. "You think the throne cracked out of fear?" Orwin asked gently. "No, child, obsidian does not fear. It reflects. It knows. It remembers." My pulse thundered. Ardent looked down at the scroll, jaw tight. "All these years, all the legends, they never mentioned this." "They were rewritten," Orwin said. "The truth was too dangerous, not for kings, but for those who would manipulate thrones." Silence fell over the room, thick and suffocating. I stared at Orwin, then at Ardent, then at the scroll again. "But I didn't choose any of this," I whispered. My voice cracked. "I didn't ask." "No prophecy asks permission," he said softly. "It simply waits for the one who can bear it." My throat tightened. Bear it? I could barely survive it. I turned toward Ardent, wanting, needing, to see denial in his eyes, disbelief, anything that would ground me. But his gaze, it wasn't fear, it wasn't shock, it wasn't anger, it was understanding. He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear. "The throne didn't tremble for your power, he said. It trembled for your right. My breath hitched. Right. A ruler's right. The idea was absurd, impossible, terrifying. My entire life I'd been unwanted, unshifted, unclaimed, unheard. And now they said I'm not a queen, I whispered. Ardent's fingers brushed mine, just barely, but enough to make my wolf lift her head. No, he murmured. Not yet. The pause that followed pressed into my bones like destiny itself. But you are meant to be. His words cracked something in me. All the fear, all the doubt, all the trembling pieces I held together with shaking hands. And something else rose to replace them. Slowly, uncertainly, but undeniably. Acceptance. A fragile, flickering acceptance. Not of power, not of prophecy, but of possibility. I lifted my chin, meeting Orwin's gaze. What happens now? I asked, voice steadier than I felt. Orwin smiled. Soft, ancient, knowing. Now, he said, the throne awaits its two rulers. Two. My breath caught. I turned to Ardent, but he wasn't looking at Orwin. He was looking at me, like the prophecy had always been written for both of us. And for the first time, destiny didn't feel like a threat. It felt like alignment. Like waking into a role I'd never imagined I could hold. Like finally stepping toward the future my wolf had always known was waiting. The night of the moon binding arrived with a stillness that felt like held breath. No wind, no rustling leaves, no distant howls. Even the sky seemed hushed. Every star crowded around the full moon like witnesses summoned to a coronation they'd been waiting centuries to see. Stormfell's courtyard blazed with blue-silver torches. Runes carved into the stone walkways pulsed faintly, as though awakened by the prophecy Elder Orwin revealed. Wolves, royal, ancient, fierce, lined the perimeter, heads bowed. Not for Ardent. For me. I stood at the entrance to the courtyard, heart pounding against my ribs. My palms were cold despite the heat rolling through my blood. My wolf paced beneath my skin, powerful, steady, aware of the moment in a way I was struggling to be. Ardent waited at the altar. He wore no crown, no armor, no cloak. Just black ceremonial garb, open at the chest, moonlight catching on the faint pattern of scars across his skin. He looked, not like a king, but like a man meeting fate unafraid. When our eyes met, something in my chest loosened, trembling with a mixture of terror and certainty. You came, he said softly. I'm not sure I had a choice, I whispered. His lips lifted, not in amusement, but warmth. You had every choice, and you chose to stand here. He held out his hand. I stepped forward. The moment our fingers touched, a hum rippled through the courtyard. Soft but undeniable, like the air itself recognizing something long forgotten. We walked together to the altar made of moonstone, where ancient wolves were etched into its sides, wolves with silver eyes, wolves with obsidian fur, wolves circling each other in perfect balance. Ardent and I knelt. The moon washed over us both in a blinding beam of white. Then, a shift. Not forced, not chaotic, not painful, natural, instinctive. His wolf, a massive obsidian beast with eyes like lightning, emerged beside him, stepping forward with slow, regal power. My wolf followed a heartbeat later, silver fur shimmering like liquid starlight, her paws barely making a sound. They circled each other, not in aggression, not in dominance, in recognition. A dance older than Stormfell, older than any throne, older than prophecy. Power crackled between them, silver sparks meeting dark thunder, swirling around us in spiraling currents of light and shadow. Elder Orwin's voice echoed faintly in the distance, chanting the ancient moon-binding rites. But I could barely hear him. All I heard was my wolf's heartbeat, steady and fierce, answering the rhythm of Ardent's. When the wolves returned to us and their forms melted back into our bodies, Ardent rose to his feet. He extended his hand again. "Mira," he said, "it is time." My breath caught. At the far end of the courtyard stood the cracked throne, obsidian split straight down the center. Its surface shimmered faintly under the moon, as if waiting. Terrified, trembling, I walked toward it. Every step felt heavier. My throat tightened. "What if I break it further?" I whispered. Arden's hand brushed my back, gentle, grounding. "You won't." His voice was certain, steady. "Thrones break under pretenders, not under those they recognize." I exhaled shakily and lifted my hand. The moment my palm touched the cold obsidian, the world exploded. Silver light burst across the courtyard, racing down the cracks of the throne, filling every fracture with blinding brilliance. The stone vibrated beneath my hand, humming like a heartbeat that had been sleeping for centuries and finally awakened. The crack sealed, completely, perfectly, with veins of glowing silver that pulsed like living light. The courtyard erupted, not with shouts, not with cheers, but with awe. Every wolf bowed, every noble dropped to one knee. Even the stars seemed to brighten. Ardent stood behind me, the wind lifting his hair, the moon crowning him in light as he stepped into the fully restored throne's glow. "Mira," he whispered, voice thick with emotion, "turn to me." I did. And seeing him standing there, strong, steady, eyes soft and fierce at once, something in me shifted, something deep, something irrevocable. "You see," he said quietly, "I was never meant to rule alone." My breath trembled. "Stormfell was waiting for you." My heart broke open, not with pain, with power, with belonging, with the realization that everything I feared becoming was everything I was meant to be. The moon binding wasn't just a ritual. It was a transformation, a union, not of power and prophecy, but of two wolves who had spent their lives carrying wounds the moon could finally mend. When Ardent stepped forward and took my hand before all of Stormfell, I didn't tremble anymore. Not from fear, but from awakening. From stepping into the light I had spent 19 years believing I did not deserve, and feeling, for the first time, like I was exactly where fate intended me to be. The day of my recognition dawned with a sky so clear it felt intentional, as if the moon and sun had finally agreed on something. Stormfell's grand hall overflowed. Nobles lined the walls, guards in full regalia stood rigid at every column, and wolves filled the balconies carved into the stone. Every torch blazed with silver-blue fire, throwing light across polished obsidian floors. The throne, once cracked, now veined with glowing silver, waited at the top of the steps. And so did Ardent. He stood tall, wearing the crest of Stormfell across his chest, eyes trained solely on me as I entered. The murmurs in the hall swelled, all sharp edges, disbelief, resentment, and something else. Awe. Servants parted, guards bowed, wolves lowered their heads. For me, the girl who couldn't shift, the Omega they mocked, the unwanted one. My throat tightened, but my steps didn't falter. Not anymore. Ardent extended his hand. I didn't hesitate. I placed mine in his. His grip was warm, steady, an anchor in a sea of eyes waiting to judge, to condemn, to accept, or simply to witness. We walked together to the center of the hall. This time, my knees didn't shake. This time, I stood tall. Ardent turned to face the court, voice rising with the weight of centuries behind it. "Stormfell," he began. "You demanded the truth of the Silver Wolf." A ripple ran through the hall. You saw her rise. You felt her howl. You witnessed the throne bow to her. He stepped aside so I stood facing everyone. Hundreds of eyes on me who'd once shrunk from even one unfriendly stare. Now I held them all Ardent lifted the ceremonial blade, silver, etched with moon sigils, and drew it gently across his palm. A bead of crimson welled up. He pressed his bleeding hand to the silver crest lying on the obsidian altar. Light flared. The crest transformed. Veins of moonlight threading through it until it glowed with the same silver that lived in my wolf. A murmur echoed, a rustle of fear and reverence. Ardent held the crest in both hands and approached me. "Mira," he said, voice dropping low enough that only I truly heard its tremble. "Step forward." I did. Not as an Omega, not as a girl begging to belong, not as someone hiding her scars, but as Moonborn, as someone who had cracked a throne by existing. Ardent lifted the crest. A counselor gasped. Another whispered, "Impossible." A third muttered, "She will destroy us all." But Ardent ignored them. He placed the silver crest against my heart. The moment it touched my skin, heat burst through me, sharp, bright, alive. My wolf surged upward, pressing against me from the inside, filling my limbs with restless strength. Silver light pulsed beneath my skin, spreading outward in delicate patterns. Gasps swallowed the hall whole. Ardent stepped back, voice ringing like a vow carved into stone. "The Omega they rejected is the queen this kingdom needs." Silence. Then, not applause, not cheers, but a collective intake of breath. A sound of realization, of acceptance, of surrender. I raised my chin, not defiantly, not fearfully, but with the quiet certainty of someone who finally understood her place in the world. I wasn't small. I wasn't forgotten. I wasn't cursed. I was chosen. The hall stared as if seeing me for the first time. My wolf stretched inside me, prowling proudly, basking in the attention she had been denied her entire life. Ardent moved to stand at my side, not in front of me, not behind me, beside me. "Stormfell," he said, "your queen." Some wolves bowed immediately, their instincts recognizing the power pulsing through the room. Others stiffened, fighting long-held prejudice. A few nobles scowled in open disbelief, but their anger trembled beneath the weight of what they had witnessed. Because truth, real, undeniable truth, was stronger than fear. And Stormfell had seen the truth with their own eyes. Ardent leaned closer, voice brushing my ear like a promise. "Stand beside me, Mira." I did. My hand found his without thinking. Our fingers laced, his strength meeting mine, his heat grounding me, his trust a shield I had never known I could deserve. We turned together toward the hall. Light spilled from the restored throne behind us, flooding the chamber until every stone, every face, every shadow glowed silver. My voice rose, steady, soft, but impossible to ignore. "I was not born to break Stormfell," I said. "I was born to complete it." A murmur of awe swept the hall like wind. Ardent's gaze burned with pride. And for the very first time, I didn't flinch from being seen. I embraced it. I belonged here. Not because of prophecy, not because of Ardent, not because of power, but because I had chosen to stand, because I had risen. And as Stormfell bowed, wolves first, then guards, then nobles, I felt the final shift inside my chest. A girl who had once been unwanted, finally ascended. Not as a wolf, not as a symbol, but as a queen. Weeks later, Stormfell no longer feels like a kingdom I was dragged into. It feels like a heartbeat I now echo. The moonlit procession winds through the upper courtyard, lanterns floating like glowing fireflies above us. The air carries the clean bite of winter, softened by the warmth of wolves running in formation along the stone path. Obsidian fur reflecting torchlight, silver pelts shimmering like frost. Ardent walks at my side. Not leading, not guiding, walking with me. My hand brushes his as we move through the crowd. Every time our fingers accidentally touch, a soft pulse of power rolls through my chest, my wolf stretching lazily, content, finally unafraid. The procession slows and courtiers part to create a path for us. Silk hems drop into respectful curtsies, armor plates clink as guards bow, nobles dip their heads with a mixture of reverence and awe. Their whispers trail us like a second procession. The girl no one wanted. The wolf they called silent. The omega they abandoned. Became the queen the throne chose. I used to flinch at whispers. Now I walk through them like moonlight through fog. We reach the Moonspire balcony overlooking the entire kingdom. From here, Stormfell stretches out in rolling pines and silver lakes, reflecting the full moon. The obsidian towers glow faintly with the veins of light my touch carved into them during the moon binding. My hand drifts to the silver crest resting over my heart. It hums softly, warm, familiar, like a second pulse. I lean against the carved stone railing, letting the night breeze wash over my face. The kingdom I once feared now feels like it breathes with me, through me, alongside me. Its magic recognizes me. Its wolves instinctively bow when they see me. The throne no longer trembles. It listens. Ardent steps behind me, his presence a heat that seeps into my spine. "You're quiet," he says, voice warm and touched with a smile. "Just thinking," I reply. He slips his arms around my waist from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. The moon catches in his hair, turning it silver at the edges. "What are you thinking about, Mira of Stormfell?" I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "Everything I used to be," I whisper. "Everything they said I wasn't. Everything I thought I would never become." His arms tighten, protective and soft all at once. "Do you miss the girl you were?" he asks. I shake my head. "No. I just finally understand her." He turns me gently to face him. "Tell me." I swallow. She wasn't weak. She wasn't cursed. She wasn't a burden. She was surviving. Waiting. Enduring. She carried a wolf bigger than she knew how to hold. His eyes soften in a way that always steals the air from my lungs. "And she became a queen," he murmurs. I laugh under my breath. That still sounds impossible. Arden cups my cheek with a tenderness that makes my wolf purr. "You didn't just howl, Mira." His forehead presses against mine. "You rewrote destiny." The words settled deep inside me, warm, anchoring, healing every quiet wound I carried into this kingdom. Below us, the people continue to stare up at the balcony. Instead of fear, their faces hold something else. Hope. I never imagined I'd inspire anything other than pity. Ardent presses a kiss to my temple, soft, reverent, lingering. A gesture more intimate than the moon binding, more powerful than any vow spoken in the Hall of Kings. My chest tightens, not with doubt, but with the realization that this life, this kingdom, this throne, isn't something I'm pretending to belong to. I do belong. Finally. Ardent threads his fingers through mine as the moon reaches its peak. "Are you ready?" he asks. "For what?" I whisper. He gestures to the edge of the balcony. Below, the wolves of Stormfell gather, waiting for their queen to begin the moon run, the tradition older than the throne itself. "For them," he says, "for the life you were meant to lead, for the howl only you can give." A slow, certain smile spreads across my lips. My wolf rises eagerly. I step onto the balcony's edge, moonlight sliding over my skin like a second crown. And for the first time, not in fear, not in pain, not in desperation, I howl. A silver, ringing, powerful cry that echoes across mountains and lakes, across forests and stone, across every wolf who once doubted me, and everyone who now bows to me. Ardent shifts beside me, his obsidian wolf joining my song, two voices rising into the night as one. Stormfell answers with a roar of howls. The kingdom I once feared shouts my name back at the moon. Mira, moonborn, silver queen. And as I stand there, moonlit, unbroken, fully claimed by my destiny, I know one simple, undeniable truth. I am finally home.